We'll get started with the Fast Five. Our first question, what's your name?
Name is Joel Hollingsworth.
And Joe, what's your farm's name?
Smoke River Ranch.
Where are you located?
We're in northeast Oklahoma, about an hour and a half east, slightly north of Tulsa.
Oh, very good. And what livestock species do you graze?
So when we built the operation, I was planning on doing the whole function stacking thing, right? Because function stacking is what helps drive profitability if you've got more operations per acre that are synergistically working together. We've gotten bit the last handful of years by the lack of labor availability in the rural marketplace. It's just been a ongoing massive problem. I'd say my biggest mistake as a business owner the last 4 years has been I was slow to admit to myself how bad that problem is.
Oh, yeah.
Where I just kept wanting to hold hope of like, there's got to be functioning people out there. If I could just hire them, I'll get the ranch more profitable. I'll pay them more. It's not a money problem. It's just truly a culture and a people problem. And so we were doing, like, I was trialing some Gulf Coast native sheep for like a dual purpose wool and meat breed. I was going to breed them to like the Shepherd's Cross over in Oklahoma, Jacob's
Oh, yeah.
Cross sheep. I was working with building the like hardy goat group that was like a Kiko, Tex Master, Spanish type cross goat. Had hens, ducks, dairy cows, some dairy goats, had some horses. I'm basically paring apart everything back except for the big ultra high density beef and probably going to keep working with the horses.
Oh, yeah.
And everything besides that, I'm going to do the hens just purely to scale enough for the people living here on the ranch, of like the teams and the families here. Um, Super small scale, like hardy, non commercially viable dairy. I'm going to do like a Dexter, Guernsey, Jersey, Piney Woods, like Griffin family line cross for like these little super small frame dairy cows that will hand milk for raw milk for me and the like families here because I love raw milk. And it's
Oh, yeah.
great to have those for just the health of the local families and kids. But I just don't have a labor base to grow those as operations. So we're focusing all the way in on the ultra high density beef herd and just cranking the handle on scaling that because that's our niche of what we're good at.
That labor issue is huge. I'm the labor force on our farm here. My dad's 77. We try and hire people to help. In fact, we're hiring, or we have my nephew helping dad some right now. But finding quality help, consistent, is difficult. Yeah.
It's really brutal. I've become convinced that I just need to take a deep and slow approach of starting with young guys and just
Oh,
mentor them
yeah.
up from zero. Because I kept looking of like, I've got pretty good reach from like our socials and like just what we're up to. And we're known to be pretty bleeding edge in the high density world. And I've got no problem pulling interns and people interested nationally or even internationally. But just nobody's capable of staying the course. They make commitments and don't keep them.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a huge just time and energy burn doing the recruiting, doing the like the vetting, doing the training and the onboarding, and then like 3 to 6 weeks in, they just quit. It's like, man,
Oh,
like
yeah.
I put thousands of man hours in this and I'm not getting anything to return from it. I have to pivot
Oh,
and do
yeah.
something different
Yeah.
because insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different
Oh,
result, and I wasn't getting a different result. So like I had to admit it to myself. I'm like, okay, this isn't working. We
yeah.
we finally are
It's
having success with labor now with one or two young guys we're working with that just graduated college, where I've started vetting for young men that come from strong families who are still in relationship with their family,
Oh,
where they
yes.
have mentors and people in their life who they're still actively pursuing wisdom and counsel in their life. Because, like, our ranch in particular, we're pretty bleeding edge. Like, we're doing a lot of things really different. And that tends to select for people who are that kind of disagreeable, outside the norms type personality type, which I'm one of those people. But what comes with that is that lone wolf type temperament.
Oh,
And the lone
yes.
wolf type temperament, they don't do a good job functioning as a team. And so the second they get a little like accountability of like, look, you have to be a team player here, they just walk. And vetting for guys like what the young guy we have now, he's being super successful. I love how he's doing, and I'm really hoping that I can get him to stay for the long haul. I met him through his dad. His dad's a part of like some of the Facebook circles I'm a part of
Oh,
in the
yes.
grazing world, and his dad's a local grazer here in Oklahoma. And his dad reached out to me and said, "Hey, my kid's come back from college. He's not quite sure what he wants to do. He'd like some summer job for a little while until he can get his feet under him, get oriented." I was like, "Yeah, come on." And the dynamic there has been so different because he has this pride of like he doesn't want to let his dad down. Like he
Oh,
wants to
yeah.
honor the community he comes from. And that one difference there, and he's also in deep relationships still with his parents, like a lot of young guys these days aren't. Like he'll have deep conversations with his mom and his dad and get their advice on things. And like that has brought to things a level of maturity that so many employees we've tried to recruit just haven't possessed.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that has been the differentiator. And I've just literally put that on our like vetting procedures now of like, name to me the mentors you have in your life and what you do when they tell you you're off base and you don't believe them. And like, that is the one difference. Like, that's what's made it different now. And focusing on those rarer young men who have the ability to kind of be on the outside as a forerunner, that like little bit disagreeable personality type, but still have a commitment to keeping elders in their life who are speaking wisdom into their lives. That has opened a different door. Now, I'm not going to have the bandwidth of people because our whole generation's atomized. I'm not going to be able to find young guys who actually are not lone wolves at a very high frequency. But the ones I'm finding that bring that with them are worth so much more. It just
Oh,
overrides all
yes.
that other problems.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that, and I'm glad you're having some success there because that's that's an unexpected issue to
Yeah,
go
I
with
mean,
everything else you're trying to do.
we've been to the point where I've been paying like $20 an hour in cash under the table, rooming and boarding young guys. Like, man, you could stack some capital like that. Unlimited
Oh, yeah.
hours, flexible to like let them be able to flex in other things they're doing. I've even flexed a couple of these guys up to 20 or 25 or $30 an hour. And it just didn't do any good. It's just the pay isn't the issue. It's just it's culture and character.
Yeah, I find that as well with people we've had hired that you would think the money would be a driving force, and it doesn't seem to be. It it's like we're paying a lot more than we thought we would have to pay for help. It's an interesting dynamic there. Welcome to the Grazing Grass Podcast, the podcast dedicated to sharing the stories of grass-based livestock producers and exploring regenerative practices that improve the land, animals, and our lives. I'm your host, Gal Hardage, and each week we'll dive into the journeys, challenges, and successes of producers like you, learning from their experiences and inspiring each other to grow and graze better. Whether you're a seasoned grazer or just getting started, this is the place for you. If you're looking to grow your profits, elevate your grazing operation, or just want to get your hands dirty, Noble Research Institute can help, no matter the size, location, or scope of your operation. Noble's 2 and 3 day educational courses were designed to build real world skills in regenerative ranching. Noble Land Essentials helps you harness the power of your soil for better forage, better livestock, and better returns. Noble Grazing Essentials demonstrates how to optimize forage use to get the best from your livestock and grazing land. Noble Profitability Essentials can help you improve your business skills with financial tools to maximize your ranch's profitability. And Business of Grazing offers ways to make your grazing strategies work for your bottom line. Scholarship and grant opportunities are available for those who qualify. Visit noble.org to learn more about these courses and enroll today. For 10 seconds about the farm, this week we got our hay baled. Mixed feelings about it. Originally going into this year, we were baling zero hay. We were going to purchase all of our hay. I think that's the goal we're working towards. With the extra rain, we have plenty of grass. If I'd had my call, we would have let it all just stockpile. However, Dad thought we need to get some baled and in the barn, which turned out it worked. We also did something on some of my lease land that we'll see how it works. We wrapped up some Sericea lesvidisa. I was going to have to go in and brush hog it, trying to manage my grazing so that I can set that Sericea back. And I'll be honest, I'm not having too good a luck. The last 2 years, the Sericea has been winning. So this year I was going to go in and brush hog it, and I thought, well, we have the haying equipment here. Why don't we wrap it up? We get the same effect as baling it or as brush hogging it, so we don't have that going to seed like we would have. So we're trying it. We'll see how it is. We'll see how that hay is this winter. I know it's going to be stemmy, but there's lots of leaves on it, and those leaves, I think they'll like pretty good. So we'll see how that goes. We should be, if you're listening to this, we should be finished hauling hay, or at least really close. We're using a hay trailer from Loaded Trailers. So if you're in Northeast Oklahoma, you might want to rent that to use. And in full transparency, that's my company, Loaded Trailers. We rent out a few trailers. On 10 seconds about the podcast, I may have 30 seconds today. The first thing on the podcast, we have Joel Hollingsworth from Smoke River Ranch on today. Start talking about ultra high density grazing. We are going to continue that theme of ultra high density grazing for the next few weeks. So you'll want to tune in. I think high density grazing or ultra high density grazing is really interesting. And I'm wanting to implement it better here. And hopefully you can gain some value from these conversations. Secondly, it is county fair time. At least in my county it is. And Todd Blocker, if you're out there, you're sweating through your shirt right now. It's a little warm. I'm in the AC recording this, so go figure. Third thing about the podcast, I have to say thank you to Farmer Tyler on Farmer Tyler Ranch. Do you all watch his channel on YouTube? Just do a search, Farmer Tyler Ranch. He's in California, runs some beef cows. He's always doing shop projects. He did a shout out for the Grazing Grass podcast on last Wednesday's episode. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Farmer Tyler. And with all that, let's get back to Joel. What year did you start grazing?
So I'm pretty new into the industry. I got my first cows in the end of 2020. So just going into the COVID times. I've had some really good mentors, which is super accelerated my learning process. I'm more of like an entrepreneur that farms than purely a farmer. I fell in love with this stuff because in my journey, I got sick in 2009, where I went to college. I lost 20 pounds of weight in about 2 weeks. And my little brother has Crohn's disease. And typically if one sibling has it, it's like a 50-50 chance the other has it. And I went to the doctor and at college, and they put me on irritable bowel medication. The drugs made me sicker, and they also made me suicidal. And I was just like, man, like, screw this. Like, I've watched my little brother go down this road. I'm not going to do the same mainstream medical thing. Like, he's still on immune suppressants to this day. And so that pushed me down this rabbit hole of like, okay, how does nutrition, alternative health, and wellness and all this work? And that got me into Weston Price and all sorts of stuff. And Weston Price and his like book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, his study of like non-modernized health and food ways of people. Like, this is how people used to stay healthy. And some of the big threads there were like pasture-raised meats, wild-caught fish, like raw milk, fermented milk like kefir, like sprouted grains, fermented sourdough breads, things like that, getting rid of the anti-nutrients. And that pushed me down this whole rabbit hole of, okay, like, this is the right practices of raising healthy food, but the food's still not as nutrient dense as it used to be. What happened? And through like a long series of events, that basically synthesized with my love of history and macroeconomics and the like study of civilizations and societies, where I started to explore where erosion and destruction of our soil also links into my other passions of like history, and realizing that our food's not as nutrient dense because we've wrecked our living soil biology that produces the nutrient density in the food. And that got me really passionate about regenerative agriculture. And I was supporting farmers and buying food from farmers and raw milk. And it kept me alive through some of my health crisis times, just like fermented milk with kefir that doesn't take much energy to digest it. And as a young guy, I was always just dreaming, like, well, maybe one day I'll be able to make enough money that like I can retire and then like subsidize my own little hobby farm. Because I'm sure you understand, like the ability for young people to enter into the industry these days is just tiny. Like the challenges, the economic problems, the labor problems we just talked about, just on and on and on. It's too expensive to enter into the industry, and the industry's not profitable enough to even make it worth taking out loans to get started going. And
Exactly. When I went to college, I thought I've got to get a career so I can make some money, so I can do what I want to do, which at the time was dairy. I wanted to do more of a New Zealand type grazing dairy at the time. And I thought I've got to make money some way. And then I got married and had a couple kids, thought I have to earn some money. So I came home and dairied with my parents. But partway through that, we were not successful. And I got off the farm job and worked off the farm for a couple decades and still not quite where I want to be, except I'm getting old.
yep, yep. I'm still pretty. I'm a young gun. I'm still 33, so I got plenty of years left in my tank.
Yeah.
And so I'd spent a lot of my life. So my degree, I started college in engineering. I was doing mechanical with a nuclear focus. And I'd taken some of my intro nuclear classes. I got into statics and dynamics. And I was smart enough for it, but
Oh.
I got to where I was realizing I was going to have to spend my life in on a computer just crunching numbers for somebody else. It's just like, man, this is not what I want to do. And so I pivoted and finished my degree in business economics, which I freaking loved. Because economics, it's like, it's a math and a science, but it's also this kind of weird black art of like all these things happen because of human nature. And so it's like, it's much more abstract than a hard science is. And with the business econ degree, I took all my finance and accounting and management and all those other type of business classes too. And so most of my background after college, I graduated 2013, kind of just after the housing crisis and the labor market and economy was kind of slow. I spent a lot of time working at just different small business startups and trades. And my dad would always be like, boy, what are you doing? You're wasting your life. You're bouncing between all these different things. I'm like, Dad, like, I feel like I have this calling because originally I wanted to be a preacher, but I just didn't feel
Oh,
like
yes.
that was something that I didn't feel that peace about it of like, this is where I was supposed to go. I spent a good bit of my life doing things like that. Like I've been a part of some ministries and got to preach from some pretty big stages, but that door is never the door that I felt was the right door. And so my dad was looking at me like, kid, you've got so much potential and you're just bouncing around wasting it all. And like, I also interned with a guy who's a physicist. This was like 2010 to almost 2020, where he does high speed tech startups. He'll create a new
Oh, yes.
technology, build a company around it, fundraise, bootstrap it to market, sell out the company, flip it, and then go and do it again. Right. So I got to be a part of things with him where like going through all the mayhem of capital raises and hostile takeover attempts. Like one of his companies, JBL, tried to steal it from him. Like a
Oh,
little
yes.
four-person startup that's just lean and mean, and this multinational mega corporation tries to come in and steal your tech. Like, so I got to learn so much from all that.
Oh, I imagine
And
so.
so
Yeah.
that gave me this really broad-based background, understanding skills, like how to fail forward and build things fast, entrepreneurial ability, like the ability to learn, because even learning's a skill. And in 2020, when I launched my ranch, it was like everything finally just unified and integrated and all came together. My dad was out here at my ranch just like, well, about 2 years ago. And he sat me down, looked at me, and goes, son, I get it now. Like everything you did is now relevant. And I understand you were being faithful, even though I didn't get it at the time. So, like, being a young rancher, one of the skills I'd learned interning with the tech guy and a lot of the different small business stuff I'd done was ability to discern who's the people in the industry that really know what they're doing, and then developing the skill to build relationship to where you kind of stubbornly but humbly kind of cozy up to the right people of like, hey, I'm going to be friends with you whether you like it or not because I'm going to like just be
Yes.
persistent enough until you want to be, and just learn based upon other people's wisdom. Like why pay the price of your own mistakes when somebody else has already made them for you?
Oh
Like, if
yeah.
you want to fail forward fast, the best thing to do is learn on other people's failures and then fail forward at the new edge that push forward the fresh edge. And we were able to grow from what I started in Virginia. So my original ranch, we were doing a little just fence company at the time where one of my good friends and we'd built this nice little company that was doing like wood privacy, high end black aluminum, um, like just privacy fence type stuff. And we were doing some nice high end jobs in like Williamsburg, Virginia, and some of these more ritzy areas. And we'd gotten asked to do a fence quote out in Suffolk, Virginia, which is pretty rural. It's over across the river. And it was a lady with a recreational horse farm who'd had her ditch mowed by the city and they'd mowed her fence down. She needed the quote for insurance claims, right? And while we were out there with her, we were just talking and hanging out. And she brought up how she'd lost her tax deduction because it's no longer agriculture with recreational horses. And
Yeah.
she'd been part of the programs that was like paying her not to grow things, some of these subsidy programs. She's like, I don't feel like this is honorable. So she'd gotten rid of that. And what she didn't realize, the second order effect of getting out of those programs is they take away your tax deductions for ag because now it's no longer ag. And so she'd been trying to find people to lease the land to farm in of all her excess acreage. And everybody was wanting to do either cotton or soy and spray chemical over her land. And the relationships had been terrible. And she's like, I'm just so tired of all this. This isn't what I want. She's like, I just wish I could find one of those young people who are interested in doing that Joel Salatin regenerative grazing thing where like I can give them land for a fairly inexpensive cost and they manage the place and grow the soil and the fertility and the beauty of the land. And they make their money on the ranch and like I don't have to mow and take care of the property anymore and I get my tax deductions back. And I was like, well, I'd love to do that because I'd been dreaming about doing it and reading
Oh
books
yeah.
and watching YouTube channels and things like Greg Judy for a long time. And I signed a lease with her for 28 acres for $1 a year. And I signed that
Oh,
lease as a middle class guy with break even net worth and no money for cows. And it was one of those moments where you feel like God's just opening a door and you know, like this is the way, go this direction, but you have no idea how you're going to do it.
oh
But out
yeah.
of obedience, you just say yes and you sign on the dotted line. So I signed a deal with her with no clue how I'm going to finance cows. I know the fence. I've run a fence. So I'm like posting videos on my Twitter out there, putting electric fencing in, talking about the little project of what I'm going to do. And just this little serendipitous providential alignment happened. So I had joined Twitter in 2019. I had joined it because I wanted to learn about Bitcoin. And Twitter at
Oh
that
yeah.
time was where all the Bitcoiners hung out. Like there wasn't the education resources and books available that there are now about Bitcoin. And so I was there trying to just figure out what is this Bitcoin thing. I'd gotten really curious about it because in some of the like the ministry stuff I'd been around, some of the small business stuff I'd been around, I'd seen some of these problems with like small dairies getting their bank accounts seized because of cash structuring. So it was all cash customers and then their bank gets frozen for like 180 plus days and they go out of business because it's they like who can run your business without having access to your treasury? Like you need money to run a
Right.
business. Or like civil asset, like forfeiture, or like just a lot of this stuff was happening. And I was intuiting some of what happened during COVID with like the debanking and conservatives. And so I was like, man, there's got to be an answer to some of this stuff of assets that you can hold that are liquid, that are more like a money you can trade around with your local customers and community that you're not going to get rug pulled by some government entity telling your bank to take your money away.
Oh yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'd gotten curious and concerned about those things, which is why I wanted to get into Bitcoin. So all these little things lined up. I get in 2019 this opportunity, this low cost land lease. I'm on Twitter. I get totally Bitcoin pilled of understanding that Bitcoin's the future. And I took out every penny of zero interest credit card debt or any debt I could find. And I went all in on Bitcoin at about $6,000. And at the same time, when Bitcoin went on that bull run up to $69,000 in like 2020, 2021 era, my Twitter account grew with it because all the energy of Bitcoin going up grew this Twitter community of Bitcoiners. So I went from like 200 followers to like 20,000.
Oh yes.
And so I'm just posting about this little project I'm working on Twitter, like not telling anybody I don't know how to get the cows, just like sharing them. I'm going to go do this. And I got DM'd just cold DM'd by a wealthy Wall Street guy. He's like, hey, this little cow project you're doing, I want to be a part of this. I was like, no, you don't. Like, I'm going to raise heritage breed piney woods that are horned and spotted cows with zero resale value. I've never farmed before. I'm going to make all sorts of mistakes learning the hard way in the real world.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
like, why? There's no money in this. What are you saying? And he wrote me back this letter explaining why he wanted to be a part of this ranch with me. Part of it was just he'd been following me for a while and we had a lot of alignment on a lot of things. Part of it was just he saw the world before everybody else did. He explained to me like he had worked in was working in like investment banking, and he understood we were starting to get onto war footing with China, which is now becoming more and more obvious like 5 years later. And he also was leaning into where like knowing supply chain volatility and risks, like so much of our animal feed inputs in the US are dependent upon like amino acid supplements and things that are all manufactured in China. And so he's like, look, I'm worried about food security and input security. I want to have food for my family, not just caloric security, but nutrient densities security that's not tied to all these fragile inputs that I'm seeing. He said, I'm also worried about like debanking of conservatives, like seizure of retirement accounts or bail-in risks, like all the things we saw happening during the COVID era. Like before COVID, he saw this and was concerned about it. He said, look, I want to own hard assets inside of trusted relationships and communities where they're outside of the mainstream investment Wall Street circles where nobody can really touch them or take them away from me. I want to have true security of quality of food for my family, and it's not to be dependent upon any inputs, just sunshine and rain. I was like, okay, I think we could do something with this.
Oh yeah.
He's like, I don't really care about financial returns. It's not his goal. He just wants to have like a diversification play that's uncorrelated, like an inflation hedge of a hard asset. And so he didn't want to be a farmer. He didn't want to like be on the board of a farming company and have to make decisions, talk about all the time. He just wanted to like solve those core problems and own the assets. And so we put our heads together and came up with this herd share program, which has grown into what it is today at Smoke River, where he bought the original breeding stock of my original 18 cows. And then every year we wean the calves, we split the calves. The lion's share of the calves go to me to fund the farm. And he gets a little bit of real yield just for like return on his effort and capital he's put in. And then we just refresh his breeding stock and sell off the old ones for the farm to make money on meat. And then he just maintains holding of the younger animals to have physical legal claim to them, right? And so we launched that. That went really well. And then COVID happened. And all of a sudden, everybody gets concerned about all the exact things he was concerned about.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like, you remember that era. Grocery store shelves are empty. Butcher's so packed, nobody can get any
Yeah, you
food.
can't get in.
Yeah, and my phone blows up. It's like all his friends start calling me, and all the people on Twitter who'd seen me talking about these herd shares, like, hey, like, can I get some of those too? And I was like, well, no, I don't have enough land, but yeah, we'll figure it out. And one of my sages, the same guy who's the mentor in the like startup world, tech world, he's also been a father figure in my life that's really taught me a lot, helped make me who I am today. One of his sayings, he says, miracles take a lot of hard work because you have to hold open the space until the miracles arrive. That would be a good theme for my story the last 5 years, where it's like faithfulness to say yes to the opportunity that I know is the right one, and then staying the course until it all just kind of blossoms, right? And Father brings the support I need or the people I need or whatever answers I need. So we did what a lot of people talked about during COVID. We got a couple friends together. We bought a big piece of land out here in Oklahoma and bought this land, had one of my buddies, he co-signed the loan. He's a high net worth and he underwrote it and helped to launch everything out here. There's a lot of details in the story. It would get lengthy to give them all. And so we bought the property and it had about 18 months of capital runway from the fundraising and the community that had rallied behind it to go do it with us. And that 18 months of capital runway was purely covering the carry cost of the property. That's not installing infrastructure for electrical fences. That's not UTVs, trailers, trucks, tractors. And that's not buying cows. Like, that's having a piece of property where I bring some cows from Virginia and we're nowhere near the scale of cattle needed to actually make it go. but I knew we had appetite for herd shares. So I went, started doing the podcast circuit, advertising it, going and calling the people who told me they were interested. And we scaled up the ranch from 13 cows I brought with me from Virginia to we're like high 400 now, probably 360,
Oh
380
yeah.
animal units. And we're probably going to cross over to 500 head this year. So it went from like just small hobby size farm to uh, ranch sizes in the US. 89% of ranches are less than 100 cows, 10% are 100 to 500, 1% are over 500. So within 5 years, we're going to be a top 1% of ranch by size in the US, which has been wild. I mean, growing a ranch at the speed of like a high speed tech growth company in the brass tacks, hard world of real things of farming has been adventurous to say the least.
Yeah.
Uh,
So in Virginia, you had one herd share partner with that, and
Correct.
then once you got to Oklahoma, how many do you have now?
Probably about 2 dozen or so.
Oh yeah, yeah. Still not a huge number, but it is a huge number when you start considering everything.
Raised
Um.
about $1.5 million of capital in herd shares in
Oh
about three
wow.
years. Yeah, our herd share owners are basically two buckets of sizes. We've got some young people that own like 1 to 3 cows. They want to just be able to tell their friends they own a cow and have a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit of food security. And they're also kind of VIP members of what we're doing. So they get first claim to production off the farm. And that's like a food security bonus there as well. And then the other bucket is families who just want to have food security and never have to buy meat again. So they own anywhere from like 15 to 60 animals. And so
Oh yeah.
we've got a good chunk of our herd share owners are actually pretty sizable participants.
In that process, going from Virginia to Oklahoma, why Oklahoma?
So when we were launching the project for scaling what I was doing, when I knew we had like appetite for people wanting to do this, originally we had built this little thing I called the cattle co-op, and it was intended to grow into a nonprofit where I open sourced this herd share model and helped other farmers replicate it to build their own farms.
Oh yes.
And the goal was to just match make a lot of these people I had who wanted to invest in herd shares with other farmers. And what ended up happening was one, I grossly underestimated the complexity of this system. I mean, it's pretty elegant and simple from the herd share owner perspective, but from the operational leadership perspective, it's a lot more complex than I realized. I I have a lot of diverse skill that I just assumed other people also have, and they just don't. And
Oh yeah.
like everybody talks about regenerative farms, one of the challenges is you're going to be a farmer plus a marketer. Running the farm in the way I've built it, I have to be a farmer, I have to be a marketer, I have to be a community leader and patriarch, I have to be a hedge fund manager managing stakeholders and capital assets and cash flows against all these differentiated time horizons and incentive and motivation groups. I have to be an accountant who's tracking and keeping really accurate books and records. Like we had to build software and
Right.
database systems. Like there's just layer upon layer of things you have to be good at. I've got a really skilled team here. One of the things I'm excited about is for running, reversing the brain drain out of agriculture. Because so much of the young generation has just gone into the laptop class where the money's in trading meme coins and tech stocks and high frequency trading at being in investment banking. Right? And most of America has just been gutted as far as agriculture and manufacturing, where there's no real interest from the young generation in participating in it. Part of that's just where the money's at, and part of that's just the challenges currently in the industry. And building the farm the way we're building it, we're overcoming a lot of those problems. And I've been able to pull in a team of people that are really high caliber people that can wear a lot of these different hats in super skilled ways. So we ended up pivoting from the cattle co-op kind of decentralized helping small scale farms at like that 20 to 40 head size type groups to with COVID, like the threat model also changed. Like security of logistics and inputs and things like that got a lot shakier during COVID. The attack on small scale farmers, whether politically or anything else, really accelerated. And so like defensibility and like the social narrative and political realm also really got important. And you need a certain level of scale to overcome a lot of those problems. And so it stopped making as much sense to do this really small scale farm.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of the really high value people I was talking to in the cattle co-op conversations, I was just like, hey, let's pull together, build a larger proof of concept farm, solve these key problems to build out the systems, the tools, and capabilities to make this easier for other people to follow in our footsteps. But we can also build this kind of umbrella organization that is already out there going and winning the narrative war, out there engaged in local politics and solving a lot of these key constraints of like input stuff, right? Like I'm doing high density grazing to where we're grazing stockpile forages during the winter. I need protein supplement. Like all the cattle cubes and things on the market are terrible in their ingredients. But like
Yes.
you need a certain level of scale to be able to bully manufacturers into producing things you desire and then making that
Right.
available for other farms, right? And we were originally looking at like Texas and Tennessee and Kentucky and like a lot of the states people think about, right? And we were looking at Texas, and land prices were crazy high at the time in 2020 or 2022, 2021, 2022. And one of my allies was here in Oklahoma. He's the high net worth guy. He's a lawyer. He runs his family investment office here in Oklahoma. I was like, you're in Oklahoma. You're really politically connected. Why have we not looked at Oklahoma? And he's like, well, I don't know. Nobody looks at Oklahoma. And so we looked at Oklahoma. The first property we found was the property we're on today. And the original team was
Oh,
like,
yes.
it's too big. It's too expensive. Let's keep looking. And we get like 2, 3 weeks out from that. And I just can't get that first property out of my head. And so I get with the team. I'm like, guys, are you guys feeling the same way I am about the original property? They're like, yeah. I was like, all right, let's take 3 days and pray about it and reconvene. And we got back together. They're like, yeah, that's the place. We have to just go and figure it out. So
Oh, yes.
I went and hit the streets to kind of rally a few more people behind it with us and raise a little more capital. And then we just jumped here to Oklahoma. We've been rock and rolling here ever since. Where we're at here in eastern Oklahoma, as you know, since you're here, everybody thinks of Oklahoma like it's like the desert, dry prairie west, like just flat, no rainfall. Here in the east, we're in the foothills of the Ozarks. It's much more akin climate wise to like northern Arkansas or southern Missouri. Like we're high
Oh,
30s
yeah.
inches of rainfall a year. It's hilly, there's trees, it's beautiful. It's a really productive area. Hindsight, one of the things I really appreciate about being here is with trying to solve the cattle genetics problem for ultra high density, which we can touch on some later. Here in Oklahoma, it's basically the worst of all worlds. I've got fescue, toxic fescue. I've got extreme summer heat, currently no shade until I like put in some trees for Savannah style silvo pasture. High humidity, high parasite load, wild temperature swings. We'll swing 60 degrees in a given day. You'll get down deep into the negatives in the winter, but it won't stay cold. It'll oscillate up above freezing where you get freezing rain just wanting to kill your animals. Like it's the worst of everything. So being here, if I can do ultra high density genetics here, they basically translate anywhere in the US pretty well.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, maybe if they ran some like non-modernized mama stock, some that was local, and then ran like our bulls on top of it, they'd have some incredible genetics really quickly. So if they can take the pressure of this corner of Oklahoma with all those just antagonists, they can handle it anywhere. So I'm really happy to be in Oklahoma. It's played out well where the culture, the people, I mean, minus the labor problems, which is a universal Western culture
Right.
thing. That's not just America. Like talking to Jacob Wolke in Australia, or like, it's just Western culture, period. But in general, I love the people and the things here in Oklahoma. There's more local businesses. Granted, they're limping along, barely profitable. Like, there's a guy here, like, just up the street, runs a local barbecue restaurant. Like, top 10 barbecue in the nation, probably top five. Like, he's won competitions. Like, incredible barbecue, the best I've ever had. His smoked brisket's incredible. But like every time I talk to him, he's like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about shutting the restaurant. I made like $10 this weekend." There's just like, and that's the nature of small business right now in America is we're just barely surviving. It goes with kind of this late stage society economic turmoil where all the middle class is collapsing, all the money's getting sucked up to the top. But yeah, I really like it here in Oklahoma. It's not as much like modernized America where everything's gone corporate. And it's still kind of rooted in American ideals.
Somewhere you made the dive into ultra high density grazing. Did you practice that in Virginia? At Redmond, we know that you thrive when your animals do. That's why it's essential to fill the gaps in your herd's nutrition with the minerals that they need. Made by nature, our ancient mineral salt and conditioner clay are the catalyst in optimizing the nutrients your animals get from their forage. Unaltered and unrefined, our minerals have the natural balance and proportion that your animals prefer. This gives your herd the ability to naturally regulate their mineral consumption as they graze. Our minerals won't just help you improve the health of your animals, but will also help you naturally build soil fertility so you can grow more nutrient-dense pasture year after year. Nourish your animals, your soil, and your life with Redmond. Learn more at redmondagriculture.com.
So I was originally kind of into the Greg Judy daily rotational take half, leave half type model. Somebody on Twitter actually sent me Johann's book. They were like, hey, like
Oh,
this is the
yes.
Bible of how to do this the right way. Like this is going to blow your mind. You need to read this. And I read it and it did. It blew my mind. It took me about 18 months and 2 reads of the book to really grok it, understand like this changes everything. But once I did, I went all in on going that direction. Like tying my story and the high density and then the economic troubles of young ranchers, all this together, like the big picture here that I understood and even herd shares was the challenges of young farmers to start ranching in America. So just to rattle off some statistics, the average ranch in America loses 1.5% return on assets per year if you don't factor land value appreciation. Those
Oh,
ranching families would make more money as land investment companies than ranching. All they're getting out of ranching is basically the tax deductions. That's why most of these multi-generational farms, you see them just slowly over time cutting up the land, selling it off, and getting smaller and smaller. 17,000-ish ranches a year have gone bankrupt in the US for I think the last 42 years. The national herd size is the smallest it's been since the 1960s.
right. Yeah.
Back to the statistical ranch sizes. 89% of ranches in America are less than 100 cows. The average herd size of that tranche of ranches is 22 animals. The bulk of those ranches are families that have full-time city jobs or full-time income from somewhere else. The ranch is done just as a hobby passion project, both for the tax deductions and because their family's always done it. They don't want to let go of it. By and large, ranching in America is a losing activity, which is terrible. Everything has been driven up to just the industrial scale feedlot models.
Right.
I think it's 6% of ranches in the US control 31% of their land base and produce 75% of the beef in America.
I hadn't heard that number, but it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. And you think about like how much media attention there is out there around regenerative agriculture and grass-fed beef, grass finishing. Only 4% of the beef in America is grass finished. Guess what percentage of that is actually raised in the US?
Yeah. Probably a minute portion as imports from South America and Australia.
Correct. 75% of that is actually imported. So around 1%, maybe slightly less, is actually grass finished meat raised in America. For the amount of media attention around this, I find that shocking.
Right. And especially, when I think about it from my viewpoint, we talk about it all the time on the podcast. So I see it a lot, but yeah, for everyone else, of course, I know by my downloads that a lot of people's not getting it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you look at this, you mix this with the fact you've got a gutted middle class in America, like the Working Cows podcast. Did you catch that one or just the Acres one that I did?
Just the acres one. I didn't catch the working cows.
So I'll plug the Working Cows one. The Working Cows podcast was when they were talking about the tariffs a lot. And there was also
Oh,
when
yeah.
Trump was talking about the Bitcoin Strategic National Reserve. He dug into the concept of Triffin's dilemma as it impacts a nation when a nation is the world reserve currency, and the idea of Dutch disease, which is when, like Holland, the term is an economics term, comes from when Holland discovered oil as a natural resource. And the government mined all the oil or extracted it, or whatever you call it, pumped it. And they were giving universal basic income to their citizens based upon the income from the oil discoveries. And their thinking was that this is going to lead to this giant renaissance of their culture and nation, like entrepreneurship, like inventing the arts, the trades. There's going to be this giant flourishing. And the exact opposite happened. Gutted their like domestic production, and they just became like a consumerist economy. And the same things happen in the US, but what we've exported as our natural resource is we've discovered we can export dollars. So Triffin's dilemma is this idea that being the well-reserved currency is an exorbitant privilege, but also an exorbitant cost because you're forced to run a trade imbalance because the world needs your money in order to interact on the national trade, right, sphere. And what it causes is a gutting of your domestic production that starts with agriculture. You see this like with Wendell Berry in his book Unsettling of America. He wrote back in like the 60s and 70s, which every single one of his predictions came 100% true, and it got worse even than he probably expected. And then you see that in the gutting of manufacturing and the consolidation of the middle class, where the like the 1% of net worth are just growing and growing because we've become this financial services economy, right? And you look at that, and what it's caused is asset prices to run away from the generation. Like that's both like infrastructure, trucks, trailers, cattle, but especially land, because land's your main
Oh,
input
yeah.
into producing. So the way I explained it is land is basically monetized. So land is treated as an investment store value asset where wealthy people hold it as a hedge against inflation. And the holding of the land is seen through a financial perspective rather than a production perspective. And so, just like gold, where gold is super useful for industrial purposes and like electronics and other things, it never gets used for it because the monetary premium of gold as an investment asset being held in bank vaults is so high, it outcompetes the productive use cases of gold. The same things happen to land. The monetization of land as an investment asset has outcompeted the productive capacity of land to where land is no longer valued based upon its production value, but its
Right.
investment value. And so, due to that, you can't pay for ranching and pay for the land out of the production of the land anymore. And so, this is
Right.
where you've got
Yeah.
a lot of these schools teaching about like ranching these days, teaching like buy, sell, and all these different models, which is the financialization of ranching. It's just high frequency cattle trading into ranching rather than raising good genetics and selling beef. Um, what most of these schools teach now is that you should separate the business. The land holding should be a land investment company, and the ranch should be an operational company that just leases the land. And so you look at land versus like rent rates versus ownership rates. Average land lease here in Oklahoma is like this part of Oklahoma is like $35 per acre per year if you can find it. And finding like large collaborated acres that land price is basically impossible.
It's super difficult.
Yeah. But if you
Yeah.
run current interest rates and run a calculation to own land now, you're looking at about 20 to 22 times that as far as the cost. So if you run, like I was reading an article out of the University of Kentucky, they did an analysis of like the average 40 head cow calf operation on rented pasture. They were making about $400 per cow per year. But you 20x your input price of land, you're now about $1,000 to $1,500 in the hole per cow per year.
Right.
And
Yeah.
this is why we just see ranches shutting down left and right. And why, like another statistic, the age of the average rancher in America is 58 and a half years old. For every older rancher, every two older ranchers retiring, you have less than one young rancher taking their place. It is a collapsing industry. And so, understanding all this, understanding the history of soil as it relates to the rise and fall of civilizations, like another one of my favorite books is Dirt, The Erosion of Civilizations by David Montgomery. He goes through and tracks like the pattern of societies like China, the Aztecs, Rome, like all these different people groups through history. And his thesis is that while a civilizations invested in their soil bank of fertility, they had flourished generation upon generation. When they stop investing in their soil bank, they usually collapse within about a generation because they get imperialistic. It's like trying to steal from the future by robbing future production potential from their children, much like the national debt conversation we're currently having. So that story's true in the US. I mean, Thomas Jefferson even wrote about in early American history, the quest to go west was a quest for soil fertility
Oh, yeah.
because the European tilling and cropping model would cause so much erosion on the East Coast that it was getting less and less productive, right? And so we see this in America where it really came to fruition in the 1930s. You had the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl all happen at once. But we just cheated our way out of it. We won the World War. We got out of like this economic problem by producing bombs to go win and industrialize that way. And then through winning the World War, we became the world reserve currency and the petrodollar system got instituted. And that's where you step forward. You've got like Earl Butts, the plow fence road, go big or go home, like consolidate the unproductive ranches, like food is a weapon, like all that hit in the narrative in the US. And what we did is we turned the tools of war of the chemical manufacturing nitrogen for bombs to bringing it into agriculture.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the only thing that made that possible was cheap energy through the global reserve currency, the petrodollar arrangement, right? So it bought us another generation forward, 40 years, you hit the 70s, the world has the whole problem with the US leaving the gold standard. We had robbed the world, we couldn't back it anymore. And we're just like, well, sorry guys, screw you. Yeah. That bought us another 40 years. Fast forward, you got the 2010 housing crisis. It's like exactly generational timescales here. And so now we're a little over 10 years past that, and we're seeing what's happening with COVID, the middle class being totally collapsed, the political turmoil, the foreign imperialism and foolish wars we're getting entangled in. Like, these are all the patterns of what happens in society when you lose contact with your soil and middle class production. So, my background in economics and kind of my other passions in life integrated into this opportunity I got starting the ranch in Virginia. And I knew I wanted to build something, but I knew I had to take into account all these phenomena and problems. And that's where the herd share arrangement really came to be. Because when we came up with that, we all realized really quickly that this has the potential to solve so many of these issues. Because it's bringing behind me as the farmer and delegating to me the authority as a rancher, where like I get to make the decisions, I get to run the systems. I don't have people in my hair like as investors having problems because if they want to participate, that's the rule. Like you're choosing to just commission me as the steward. If you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
like it, vote with your feet and withdraw your animals and leave. It's commissioning me with leverage of scale of people backing me, the ability to run an operation that actually can overcome some of these economic dynamics. Like Jaime Elizondo, he says that the profitable scale of an operation, a cow calf in the US, economically viable, is 500 cows of a cow calf. And if you got 89% of ranches at an average size of 22 cows, we're just nowhere close.
Right.
And so
yeah.
the herd shares was our first push of like, okay, we need to start building some legs on the stool here, to overcome these things to make it possible for young people to enter the industry and enter the industry in a way that's economically viable. So that was one big piece. And then the ultra high density was one of the next ones. Because with the ultra high density, you're able to grow your carry capacity by like 3 to 4x what's typically expected. Like in my part of Oklahoma, you know this because you're local, the extension office typically are recommending like 3 to 4 acres per cow. Running the numbers on my grazing this spring and summer already, we're at about 0.8 acres per cow per year if we get 3 recoveries to graze per year.
Oh, yes.
3 recoveries is nothing around here. I could probably get 4. And we're less than 4 years in. Like I've barely started building carbon and everything in the soil. I mean, only this spring have I broken down like the herbicide residues in the soil to where my legumes and my forbs aren't coming up and looking burned because of like graze on and stuff that's in the soil profile.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're just getting started and I'm already at 0.8 acres per cow. So now I've got capital scale from herd share owners plus actual like operational efficiency on the ranch of carry capacity. It's like basically free land. And like as a rancher, I'm sure you understand the biggest driver of profitability, one is carry capacity, stocking capacity. Second to that is fertility. Like
Oh, yeah.
weaning weights, all these other things, like they're all trivial compared to stocking rate and fertility. And so getting stocking rates up with ultra high density and then breeding super early sexual maturing fertile genetics according to Johann Zietzmann's grazing principles or breeding principles, it's giving us this huge edge to now I've got capital scale plus I've got this massive 3 to 4x boost in operational efficiency of carry numbers. And so it's given a leg up to where we're not trapped in the same economic problems. Like you probably know Dean Snyder being local.
Oh, yes, I do. Yeah.
He sent out a text message a couple weeks ago to a bunch of us Northeast Oklahoma guys. And was like, hey, like let's get together. We're always talking at the Grazing Lands Coalitions about getting the local guys together and spending more time together. Like, we've never done it. Let's just do it. It's hamburgers at my place, 7 p.m., July 3rd. I'm like, all right, I'm in. And like 7 or 8 guys came. It was awesome. We had a great time. I was the youngest guy in the room. I was the least years of experience grazing. The only other guy that had any experience with high density or even like really pushing on regenerative stuff was a young guy named Zeke.
Oh,
He's been
Zeke.
grazing since 2013, I think. He's like 38. I'm like 33. And everybody else was older guys, like guys there who run feedlots or like 800 plus cow sizes, or one of the guys is one of the main suppliers for whole this like 4-state region. Like a lot of guys with a lot of experience ranching. It was an awesome crew of guys. So last Saturday, one of those guys came to my place after getting together at Dean's. And when he first got there, we went and saw the herd down by the water spot. And I'm running Piney Woods genetics cattle, which are like one of the early American breeds, one of the first two. They're little woods and swamp cows. They're hardy little cows that got brought over with the original settlers. They wanted things that were super durable because they didn't know what the food supply would be like across the ocean in the New World. So it's like, we just want something we can release into the woods and it'll thrive and we'll definitely have food. And they never modernized. They've been down on the Gulf Coast and then just almost went extinct. A few family lines kept them alive.
Let's see, does the Kerr Center run Piney Woods?
They used to. They got rid of the herd. I tried to track down that herd and buy it, but like it's just been scattered out at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Funnily enough, I basically bought out the entire Piney Woods market the first 2 years of growing the herd here. Last year or this year, the Piney Woods field or breed day, their field day, they usually have a sale at the same time. There wasn't a single Piney Wood cow for sale. And they're like, where are all the Piney Woods? I'm like, sorry.
Yeah.
I ended up having to buy like some like Corriente and some Corriente Machona crosses and just trying to find what I could of kind of that really hardy, unimproved stock as my starting base. We're breeding up on top of that some other like composite bulls. I've got some like Machona Obrock, some like Thule Murray Gray, some Machona South Bulls, some Obrock Red Angus, some like old line Aberdeen Angus, some full blood Machonas. Like we've got a really good little bull group. Hardy little bulls with the right types of principles for Johann Zietzmann's type breeding philosophies. To kind of in beefing up the Piney Woods, I'm really glad I started with the Piney Woods because it solves so many problems because they're so hardy and fertile that I've not had to deal with a lot, kind of getting the flywheel turning of like the operations and the ecology and all that. But anyway, so this rancher, he's looking at these cows. He's like, they're spotted, they're horned. You're going to get docked by like 50% of the sale bar. And how are you ever going to make money? And then we go and the cows go into their next grazing section and they leave the water spot and they all pack in there. And we're running right now during calving at like 650,000 pounds an acre, doing like 4 to 5 moves a day. And he sees the efficiency of the grazing. And he's like, you're raising this many cows per acre? He goes, that little calf, how old's that calf? And I'm like, yeah, it's about a year old. So how much does the calf weigh? I'm like, probably 400, 450. He's like, so you're telling me for every one of my calves I'm selling, you're selling 3 of those 400 to 450 pounders? I said, yep. He goes, even if you don't go direct consumer at the meat, even if you sell at the sale bar and you're making almost twice the money I'm making. I'm like, yep. He's like, okay, I think I get it now. And that's where ultra high density is truly a game changer. And there's many reasons behind it. There's the grazing efficiency of high utilization. So you're just getting more use out of the forage, which allows you to rest the pastures for longer. The rest allows more root exudate production and more fertility accumulation in the soil of just long-term carbon stores, deeper roots to develop in the plants. It allows greater diversity to grow in with the long rest periods. you end up getting better plant area density. You get a higher leaf to stem ratio and better regrowth because of the grazing principles and practices. And so you've got all this stacking happening of just all these dynamics that are driving your ability to carry more animals per acre. And so putting those together has started building this paradigm that we're trying to forerun of this new model to make ranching profitable where young people can enter into the industry.
So I have two questions. First, with the herd share, and we're jumping quite a bit back to the herd share. You mentioned about that helping young people get started. Are you viewing that as a way for young people to get the capital to get started, or are you viewing it as a way they can get started with a lower amount of capital for themselves and build some genetics that'll be functional for them that they could pull out at a later point?
So the herd shares, what I'm thinking there is that when other young people are able to replicate the system, they'll be able to launch farms with leverage backing like I have.
Yeah.
It's not that you're able to start from zero. Like you'll still need land, you'll still need some animals of yourself, you'll need to have proved yourself where others know you know what you're doing. But once you have that capacity to build some trust, because the herd shares aren't trustless. I always tell the herd share community, like, look, like we have to have relationship with each other. You have to know me well enough to trust my competence and to trust my honesty. You got to trust that I'm going to keep accurate records. You got to trust that I'm going to effectively execute on the vision and mission statement we share. And that rate limits it to where you can't have it so many backers. Like the Dunbar limit, I would say, is like 150 people. Like you can't have more people than like a small church size where everybody knows everybody on a first name basis, because then you don't have enough relationship to have that level of trust. It's a collaborative type arrangement, but it's a really beautiful system because you're reintegrating producer and consumer to where you're re-knitting those relationships where we're no longer fractured and atomized, to where they're now sharing with me the initial capital costs. They're sharing with me time horizons and risk, and they're sharing the same game and vision I'm sharing. And we vet really heavily for our herd share owners. Like I have an 8-page marketing packet, a really long contract, and like I have them read that and I'll actually interview them. Like, okay, walk me through understanding. I need to know you understand it all. And I want people who are coming with these long 20-year time horizons, who understand the goals, understand the challenges, that they understand the why of why this matters. Because we're going to face things that are difficult together. We're sailing a ship to the new world. We're going to run into some storms. And I want people who don't flinch, that are able to weather that with me because they're in it for the right reasons. They're actually putting in the time to understand it. And so that collaborative arrangement, once I'm able to bring in young people and them intern here, and then us help kind of build the team and then kind of just commission them and send them out. Like, okay, we got one in Oklahoma, go build one over back in like, I don't know, like Tennessee. And then we can leverage our network of people who are in, say, that new state where we send the team we've trained. Like, okay, hey, there's some young people. They've built up some net worth where they're going to bring this number of cows with them, help them scale, throw some capital behind them, and you guys build another hub farm just like we have here in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Okay. And that makes sense. And that's really what I was thinking with it. But I thought there is the potential that someone could get in there to help get some of that foundational breeding stock that'll be adapted to it.
Funnily enough, that's actually the motivation for some of our herd share owners. Like some people are in it for food security or asset security of like an inflation hedge. Some of it are just like ideological support for what we're doing. But a non-trivial number of them are guys that they still kind of have on the golden handcuffs. They have a really successful career and they want to retire and farm one day. And they were looking at land because they wanted to like go ahead and invest and buy land and get moving in the right direction where they want to go in like 10, 15, 20 years. And it stopped making sense because it's like, well, I can own the land, but I don't have time to like manage the land or take care of the land and like keep like hobos and like guys squatting on the land off of it. They're like, this is just not really sensible. How about I just buy herd shares with you guys? You guys steward the genetics, you grow the base a little bit for me. And then when I retire and I'm ready, I'll just withdraw the breeding stock and then I'll use that to launch my own operation. So we've got a couple guys who are fairly sizable herd share owners where that's their big motivation, which is really cool. Because now it's like they come visit, they volunteer, they're learning things here. We're having conversations. They're getting to learn all the mistakes we make. They get the benefit from. And we get to really just enjoy the process together because they're really vested in what's happening and they really care about it. And so it's not just like financial investors. I have this whole network of people who really love this. And they have different diverse backgrounds. I mean, some are like tradesmen, some are like lawyers, some are in the investment world. And like I need something, I just pick up the phone and call one of our herd share community. Like, hey, I need some brainstorm this. Help me figure this out. And it's social capital is such a superpower because
Oh,
having a
yeah.
friend to give you good counsel or advice or like, hey, I need to meet so and so who's in your world. Can you give me an introduction? Like, good Lord, is that magic? Like, that has been probably comparable in the value add to even the capital they've put in. Like, that has been such a boost to not have to do this alone in the
Oh, yeah.
relationship sense of the breadth of relationship we have that opens doors for us is just, it's huge. It's a really big deal.
Yeah.
Or even like just support. Like we went through a couple. Remember the winter we had 2 winters ago where we had that big ice storm. It was like -15 for like 2 weeks. A week before that, one of the herd share owners messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I know you guys have labor challenges. Big storm coming. You guys ready?" I'm like, "We'll make it, but it's gonna hurt. Like we don't have quite enough people." He's like, "All right, I'll be there in 3 days." He came and
Oh,
volunteered for 3 weeks to get us through the storm. Or like similar things, we'll face a challenge and like one of the herd owners will be praying about me. He'll be like call me like, "Hey, I was thinking about you this morning. I felt like it was the right time to check in. How you doing?" I'm like, "Man, I'm discouraged." And they'll just take an
oh,
hour and cheer me up, you know? Like it is awesome having people who support what you're doing.
oh, yeah. That support structure is so important for not just in ranching, but in life and
Mhm.
everything you do. Yeah.
And the herd share community by and large, they're very intelligent, competent people in the fields they participate in who are very ideologically driven to make the world a better place. So it just self selects towards just incredible
Oh,
people.
yeah.
I'm so grateful for the network of people we have behind us.
Yeah.
It's just been such a privilege where I've had their support to get to do the thing I've dreamed about. I often think
Yeah.
about the psalm by David where he talks about the lines have fallen to me in pleasant places. I've been given a good inheritance. Like that's what it feels like. I've been equipped to go serve the commission I feel called to in a way that I wouldn't be successful at this of even fulfilling the mandate I feel I have on my life without having these people who have thrown in to support me in it. It's just such a humbling place.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just so steeped in gratitude, just knowing just the beauty of it, man. It's just I
Yeah.
love it. I love it so much. I go on and on about it.
Yeah. Switching gears just a little bit to the ultra high density grazing.
Hmm.
When you throw out that carrying capacity, point 0.8 acres to an animal unit, I think you said.
Yep.
That's I'm nowhere near that, and we've been managing pasture, and I think my pastures are better than any of my neighbors based upon their set stocking. I think it's a night and day difference, but I'm not where you are, and that's what makes this ultra high density grazing very interesting to me when I look at it. But implementing it, I've got to figure out some stuff there, and we're going to have some future episodes that talk more about this. But when you first got started, were you able to, was it like ultra high density today and you weren't doing it yesterday, or it take you a while to get into that,
Yeah.
get your
So
animals into it?
we've bought in a ton of animals over the last 3 years, and in docking animals in the system is something that, in hindsight, I would do my animal selection and how I bring them in totally different now than how I did it this first time. I don't know anybody's ever grown a ranch this fast trying to do high density.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I know like 6 high density grazers in the U.S. on perennial pastures raising adapted genetics. Like it is a small world. And talk about trying to grow from 13 cows to 500 in 4 years. It's a whole
Oh,
different bucket of challenges. It's usually taken about 6 months to get them used to the density, and about 18 months for the animals to fully adapt over. Like we usually, when we're bringing in animals, we back off to like 150, 200,000 pounds to the acre. And then we're just watching animal temperament because the shy grazers won't get in there because they're just too nervous with the animals. And we'll
oh,
find
yes.
that boundary and kind of hold them there for a week or two. And then we'll tighten it up and then we'll go in and herd them in by hand and back fence them. And then we'll hold them there for a week or two until they stop trying to squirt out of the section. And it takes a good couple months to get the animals up to it. Now,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you buy them out off of a high density grazing operation like this, They just jump
That'd
right
be
in.
different.
They're just
Right.
awesome.
Right.
Like I never want to buy animals again that come from a system different than ours because it's such a headache. Like the animals I bought from Michael Kinsey over at Reverend Wild Branch in Georgia, his just jump right in and flourish from day one. It's just so
Oh yeah.
much easier. So like
Yeah.
that's been one of the challenges of the animals of scaling in. The other challenge has been the skills because ultra high density is an incredible paradigm shift. It's a whole different world and it's really hard to get your head around how different it is. And the way I tend to describe it, it's like high frequency, high intensity. And it's almost like the difference between like flying a commercial airliner versus flying a fighter jet. It's like the margin of error flying a fighter jet at those speeds, a little gust of wind, you could just crash into the mountainside just because you have to be really on top of your game. Most people who try it historically have failed it. Jaime's doing a great job overcoming some of that with his education, and we run an ultra high density Facebook group. Me, Matt Robbins, Kinsey, and Josh T. Which we're doing really well, getting some success at getting people to learn it without making the same mistakes. Because you have to know your animals really well, and the way Johan explains it, he says that a cow has a dual purpose. She's the keystone species of ecological management and the production of cash flows through providing meat to the marketplace, right? And so the more intensity you put into your grazing, the faster it moves forward ecological succession and like allowing long rest periods of root exudate production. And just, it's just better for the land. The problem is the genetic adaptation and hardiness of your cattle is basically the strength of the lever arm. You can't push your cows harder than they can genetically handle. And so
Oh yeah.
most modern like commercial cows, if I were to push them like I do with my cows, where I'm pushing high utilization grazing, no shade, back walking to water, drinking out of a common muddy water hole, it's high in parasite load, no anti-parasite care, no vaccines, like no feed supplements like grain, like forget breeding, they might even just die. Like they just wouldn't, especially on fescue. And I always tell people the magnitude of difference between a commercial cow and like a South Pole or a Faro Angus. Everybody knows it's a pretty big difference. An ultra high
Right.
density cow is basically that same magnitude of difference again. Like it's that different and that much harder on the animals.
Oh yeah.
So the mistake most people make is they push their animals past what their genetic base is capable of handling. And so they're chasing the utilization, seeing what good it's doing for their land, and they're just not quick enough to catch the rumen fill trends, the body condition trends. Like most ranchers and most set stock operations or even light rotational operations, they don't really think about body condition except for maybe quarterly. Like it's not really that often. Versus us here, I mean, we're going down to the herd and we're rumen scoring those cows like 3, 4, 5 times a day. We're doing body condition reports weekly where we've got this whole bell curve of a histogram we build of like what percent of the herd is at what body condition score. We're doing utilization reports on the pasture grazing sections like 3, 4, 5 times a day. It's super observation intensive. And you got to recognize trends quickly and know how to adapt quickly. And so one of the challenges is the skills of that. Like I made plenty of mistakes early where like trying to teach, like I've got really developed skill at being a good student, like we are talking about before, just through just life experience, to where I could pick up things and fail forward really fast personally. But then trying to teach like my operations grazing manager that where I'm doing most of my business stuff and he's running the herd day to day, like we've made some mistakes in our operation. We're like going into breeding season, a lower body condition than I wanted, and things like that, right? And the skill barrier of mistakes and risk with high density is definitely a problem. It's one of those big challenges that has to be overcome, and that's both education, but I think it's also tooling. One of the things we're trying to build that's like another leg to the stool. So we've got like the herd share capital structures. We're also going to build land vehicle structures that are very similar to herd shares for like community supported farming. And then you've got like the ultra high density grazing. The genetics piece is a huge problem because you need the right genetics cows in order to do this, and they basically just don't exist. Matt Robbins is the furthest along about of anybody. Michael Kinsey is a little bit behind him, but raising some good stuff. And neither one of them are selling cows because they're growing carry capacity on their land faster than they can grow their herd.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're
Yeah.
just keeping everything. And there's not that many guys doing this, developing genetics. There's just not that many out there to buy. Like, I couldn't have bought ultra identity genetics even with $10 million. Like, they just don't exist. So solving that's another problem that needs to be provided for young people wanting to do this. But the other big problem is the skill problem. And so we're working on building some tools and some technologies that actually integrate with education structures to help overcome that. So I'm working with a technology company. They're actually going to be out here next week to do some feasibility study on our first tooling approaches to this. That is going to be gathering observational data like we're doing on the ground on like rumens and pasture utilization and body condition trends and all these different things. And it's going to be using like AI and neural nets and some algorithms and things we're building where you're going to have a dashboard in front of you of just all these rapid snapshots. Like before the cows went in the sections, their rumens were this. After they finished the hard push graze in the section, their rumens were this. Utilization was this. Like the body condition trend from the last 2 days has been this. So it's like your last 2 days of management gained or lost weight. And then it's going to spit back to you where those data places intersect so you can understand what your levers are of what you can do to change the outcomes so you know how to adapt as a rancher. Goal being help the rancher to simply be this guy who's developing the strategy and then the creative thinking and critical thinking. And then the tooling is doing a lot of the underlying work to give him what he needs to make good decisions. Because part of the problem with high density is the labor burn. Because I need a
Oh, right.
qualified guy on the ground, like doing the observations, making the decisions. I need a guy moving fences and installing fences. Like when I ran the numbers on the Gallagher Shepherd collars, just talking labor, installing fences, moving. We use auto lifters. Like we're pretty like
Oh,
technology
yeah.
intensive already, per what most people would think. So just talking like fences, labor of doing like installation, moving fences, and infrastructure depreciation of polyreel, step-in post, UTVs. My operational costs when I go to the Gallagher system with the virtual collars, virtual fence collars, drop by 80%.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's significant. And that's because of the man hour burn. Like we do 60 man
Yeah.
hours a week purely installing and moving fences.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It's a lot. And so building a stack of technology where we have like collars, we have this data gathering software spitting or hardware and software spitting back to you like herd measurements and information, like correlations of data. It's going to make ultra high density much more accessible, especially stacking that with education materials because it's like, okay, hey, look, the software's telling you this. This is what that means because a tool shapes the questions you ask and how you see the world. And like you don't use a hammer to try to screw something. You don't use a screwdriver to try to hammer something. Like you approach the world based upon what that tool like is intrinsically made for. And so there's this beneficial feedback loop between tooling and education that's going to
Yeah.
make people ask the right types of questions. And so what we're trying to do is basically take it on the chin of figuring out all these different things and forerunning it and build the stack to make it possible for young people to afford to ranch again through putting together these investment structures, the genetics we're building, learning high density grazing as a practice, and then tools to help them be able to execute on that without having the risk and the mistakes and the skill level requirements that are currently just so high to actually be able to do that well.
Joe, I feel like we've just scratched the conversation, scratched the surface of it. And I've got notes here for some other questions to ask. But I think it's time we transition to Famous Four and talk about some of those questions in a later episode.
Sounds good to me.
So, for our Famous Four, there's same four questions we ask of all of our guests. And our first question is, what's your favorite grazing grass related book or resource?
I'd have to say Man, Cattle, and Veld by Johann. Like nothing else is close to it. That's just been such a pivotal shift for me. There's other books I'm reading and enjoying. Like I'm reading the one that Hobbes just released, Herd, which is about the relationship between grazing animals and human history, which is just
Oh,
super
yeah.
interesting. But the one that shaped me the most has been Man, Cattle, and Veld by Johann to just a large degree.
I mentioned this earlier. We talked a little bit about Zeitzman's book, and my main takeaway was breeding philosophy, very similar to that of Lassiter. And hearing you talk, I'm thinking I need to go ahead and go back to the book and reread it through a different lens already. And I just,
Most people do that. Most of the things that Johann's popular and known for is his breeding philosophy. It's like everybody misses his grazing science. It's
yeah.
just starting getting popular with Jaime pushing it on Facebook, and then the Facebook group we launched where we're teaching about it. We had about 4,000 people sign up for that in the first 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're starting to see this just exponential ramp up of people being curious about the high density grazing philosophies too. But it's just really getting started.
Yeah. Our second question, what's your favorite tool for the farm or ranch?
Good question. I mean, I would probably say my favorite tool is the one that doesn't exist yet, which is why I'm trying to build it, like that data dashboard of this kind of high frequency observation type stuff. My current active favorite tool is probably we have a team chat channel where we've set up, it's almost like Slack, but it's on a self-hosted server here on the ranch.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got systems in place where all of our communications are structured. I guess maybe even the structuring might be my favorite tool because that's a tool in itself. To where we do
Oh,
rumen
yeah.
reports, utilization reports, body condition reports, and it enables learning and collaboration and also me to supervise operations without being there. Once I've got the guys trained to be pretty consistent in how they're like measuring animals and giving the reports.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
that has been really powerful because I spend a lot of my time at the executive level doing interviews and raising capital and being able to just pull up my
Right.
phone and be like, what's going on the ranch? Okay, did he make a good decision? Okay, let me text him some advice. That has been a game changer for us because it's allowed me to teach without having to be just totally in the weeds all the time and being there, like right looking at the herd with him.
Oh, yeah. Our third question, what would you tell someone just getting started?
That's a great question. I end up having to answer that question a lot because a lot of people reach out to me, young people asking things like this. I think the biggest piece of advice I'd give would be find somebody who's actually built an operation that has faced challenges and intern with them. Like there's a lot of people out there
Oh,
in the
yeah.
regenerative space, like hosting classes or like institutes teaching people and having like just like these little like I don't know schoolroom and then ranch tour times and some of these classes like they even like learn how to build a ranch from zero, but the person teaching it had every advantage and has never built a ranch from zero because they inherited 1,000 acres of family. Just like you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
really understand what it's like
Yeah.
to build a ranch from zero, buddy. Um, whatever you're going to face in the world, take the time to find the few people who've really have faced similar challenges and spend not just 3 months, not just 6 months, like 2 or 3 years with them. Because what you'll learn with significant amounts of time is huge. You can't pick that stuff
Oh,
up in
yeah.
a weekend class. Like we put 4 years into going to college to learn things like business school.
Right.
Like the same should be true about what it takes to run a ranch operation. I mean, a ranch, I mean, I would argue that farming is the keystone of a local economy and community. A ranch needs to be capable of doing everything. You got to be capable of understanding like cash flows and accounting and like strategic business maneuvering and how to like OODA loop effectively and pivot and problem solve. You need to understand like marketing and customer service and sales. You need to understand like legal stuff and how to get through legal challenges and battles. You need to understand politics because the attacks on small scale farms are just going to happen. You got to be able to play political games. You got to be able to engage with the media and win the narrative battle in the social landscape. Like we got reported for killing cows last winter,
Oh,
where we graze at high density. We don't feed hay. We just graze stockpile through the winter. And a neighbor happened to drive by. They saw our cows lounging in the sun, I guess, because they were satisfied in a tight little section. They just assumed they were dead. And they called the cops on us. The cops show up. They look at our animals. They're like, yeah, we don't know what they were talking about. And so, like, seems like it's no big deal. A couple months later, the Oklahoma Conservation Commission's having a board meeting. And we've got a grant with the Conservation Commission where we're working on doing some science and going to proof out some different things we're studying. And then Oklahoma Conservation Commission is going to leverage that for doing some education and taking the program we've done to like do pasture walks there and host classes. And really excited. I'm working with Blaine Stacy and I freaking love Blaine. But so the conservation board meeting, one of the locals there brings up, goes, "Hey, so you guys are working with one of these ranches that has all these rumors going around the local community about them killing cattle. Is it really wise to associate your reputation with a ranch who has this reputation?" Yeah, it's just terrible. And so just neighbors talking.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I had expected this, thankfully, because I knew being on the cutting edge, doing things different, that like this is what happens. So
Right. Yeah.
I'd already built relationship with some of the key movers and shakers and influencers in these worlds, especially Blaine. And so, like with Blaine, we have him out all the time where we're doing herd walks and checks together. We're looking at the pasture and the recovery together. Like I've done 3 or 4 pasture walks over the last couple years with like the Oklahoma Extension office of like 5 or 6 people. And like with Blaine, I'm sending him text messages all the time with our like charts of herd body condition at certain times a year, pictures of our rumen fill, pictures of animals that are the lower animals that drive your decisions. You have to manage based on the lowest common denominators. Like picture, like questions and conversations about challenges we're facing. It's like Blaine and I are interacting all the time. And so this happens in that meeting, and Blaine stands up and goes, "Guys, did any of you go knock on their door and talk to them?" They're like, "Well, no, but we know the guy who knows this." He's like, "These guys would be happy to talk to you. I can tell you for a fact these guys keep more data on their animals than anybody in this room, and they know more about this than any of you guys do because they're pushing the edge having to learn about it. Like, this is all completely false." And that just like Blaine is really well respected. He's like a champion Brock rider around here. He came from like the mainstream agriculture world, his degrees in range sciences. He got working with the Conservation Commission and carbon programs, and he was one of those rare people who's just so self-honest. He realized that the carbon narrative's false and it's really about living soil biology. And he really moved all the way into this regenerative stuff. But unlike most people, Blaine has been able to build respect and protect relationships with all the mainstream people while his beliefs are on the cutting edge of the stuff that we care about in the regenerative space. And so him standing up and just calling all that out is just nonsense, just silenced the room.
Oh, yeah.
And none of it got any traction. And so
Oh, yeah.
you need to understand strategy and how to build defensibility around your operation, expecting these kinds of things to happen. And this is stuff you're not going to learn in a classroom. You can't go to business school to learn how to handle these sorts of things, how to handle an irate customer, or like just on and on and on. And so that's where like a young person going in, slow down, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, spend a significant amount of time with somebody who's faced real challenges in a world very similar to what you want to be in, and just humble yourself and go there and osmotically soak it all up. Because doing that when I interned with the tech guy or a lot of the other small businesses I worked in earlier in my life, it has been just unquantifiable how valuable that's become to me today to be able to understand and do what I'm doing now.
Excellent advice. Blaine was on episode 141. If a listener hasn't caught that, they can go catch Blaine's episode on the grazing grass. Final question. How can others find out more about you and what you're doing?
So, Smoke River Ranch, we've got a Twitter, got a Facebook page, more actions going through Facebook than Twitter for Smoke River. There's also a website, smokeriverranch.com. I've got all sorts of podcasts you can listen to catch up on what we're up to. I've been on the Old World podcast with the American Tribune, where we talked about like the ancient agriculture models in Europe and the agriculture models in the US, and kind of unpacking a lot of those interesting things and from a historical perspective. There's the Working Cows, where we talked about Shriffin's Dilemma and macroeconomics. I had the one with Acres. The personal Twitter account I use is Untapped Growth. That's going to be a little more political, but I talk about a lot of stuff there too personally that ends up touching into the agriculture sphere. But yeah, the following us on Facebook is probably the best place to get notifications about everything that's coming up and happening. If you want to know more about herd shares, participate and support what we're doing, the herd share page on the website has a little sign up link, and then it emails you the herd share package, and then you can email me back. And I'd love to talk with anybody who wants to know more about that or be a part of the program with us. We've got about 50 herd shares available of mature female cows that could be like bringing other people to own those with
Oh,
us.
yeah. Very good. And I said the final question. Actually, we have room for one more question. Do you have a question for me?
Yeah. Why are you ranching? And what is your goal in what you're trying to do in your ranching operation? Your
Well,
long term goals, like big goals, 40-year goals.
my initial goal is to pay my bills next month.
Yep.
That's always in the short term. It comes from I grew up on a farm. I
Mhm.
love this lifestyle. I love what I'm doing. Long-term goals, I'd like to grow our ranch, grow what we're doing, leave the land in better shape than we find it, raise more energy dense food in a way that's more in harmony with nature and the ecosystems, and provide. I mean, I drive my wife crazy because I'm like, I'd love to have everything from scratch. I just feel like the way things were on the farm in the 20s, 30s, 40s is something we should be going back to, but we've got to be able to manage our animals and get there because they weren't using high density grazing there, at least in our area. But that's self sustainable, and the business being financially secure and being able to grow so that this provides income. And I would love to see, the podcast is a merge of my agricultural passion with my education passion because I
Mhm.
spent over 2 decades in education. And I really feel those come together. But how can we help the next generation?
It's really
It
important
is
because
the
without
next
them, there's no
question.
industry.
Right, right. Because you mentioned this earlier, the average age, and I consider my age, and I left education sooner than I planned. I'm getting older faster than I planned. I don't know if that's happened to anyone else, but it is. And I was looking, thinking, if I do this 10 more years, am I physically able to what I've dreamed about doing for decades? So part of it's a leap of faith that we can make this work out here. And I know I don't have a big enough ranch to really do it. We have the podcast, and as we talked earlier, I've got a side business, but just trying to figure this out so it's sustainable, and then long-term goal, obviously grow, help the next generation be ready and do a great job. It's all wrapped in there.
That makes sense. Yeah, I can't help but dream of those early American accounts from the pioneers or Lewis and Clark. Have you read any Lewis and Clark's journals of what they saw going across the West?
Not in a long time, but it's just amazing. It's hard to fathom what they saw and
Hmm.
how that was. Yeah, because we don't see that now.
Yeah. Like one of my favorite books is on Undaunted Courage about the just story of Lewis and Clark. I think it's written by Ambrose. The bison just wander up to the people like, "What are you? I've never seen a person before." And, like talking
Right.
about grass that's like 15 feet tall and so tall you can tie it over the top of a horse's saddle, or like the stories of the settlers migrating across the West and the herd of bison comes through and there's just their oxen or horses are dying because the bison just ate everything and it looks like Mordor behind them.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's one of the things I kind of plug about the high density stuff. I know you're going to interview Jaime soon, so like a little like just thought to kind of transition into that. I would define regenerative agriculture as the maximization of photosynthetic energy capture with the goal of balancing stocks of fertility and ecological capital for the resilience and future production with the flows of productive capital of animals being sold in the marketplace for food. And if we want to get back to the maximal possible point of that, we have to follow the pattern of how it was originally this Edenic fertile basin in the US, which you've got long rest periods with
Yes.
really massive herds moving at high density and high intensity, hammering everything where horses and oxen die because there's nothing left to eat behind the oxen. That is the system that developed the 15 or 20 feet deep topsoils of the Great Plains. And if we want to get back to that, we have to replicate that.
Sounds great, and that's a great lead up to future episodes coming here on Grazing Grass. So you want to make sure if you're not subscribed, you subscribe. But Joe, really appreciate you coming on and sharing today, and I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, Cal.
I really appreciate Joe coming on and sharing today. My biggest takeaways from today's episode, one is that stocking rate. I believe he said for this spring and summer, he's running about 0.8 acres to an animal unit. That is way greater than what I'm running. But to be honest, or to be accurate, he said this spring and summer. This spring and summer has been atypical for our area. We've gotten more rain than we normally get. So if I was pushing my grazing, I'm not sure what my stocking rate would be. I much prefer to see what that averages out to over time and see how that goes. But I'm very interested in ultra high density grazing. Next week we have Jaime. He's going to be on to share about total grazing, his version of high density grazing as well as his whole program. And then after that we have Hobbs on to talk, and maybe a couple more episodes. I'm hoping to get a couple more people on just to focus on this high density grazing because I think it's really interesting. Like I said, we're going to try and do a little bit more of it and see how it works here. When I think about grazing management, I want something that someone who's working off the farm can do. And I know a lot of people who's doing ultra high density grazing, they're moving multiple times a day. So how do you do that while you're off the farm? And if you're not going to use some of those tools to do that, then what kind of stocking rate are you going to get with, or you're going to do some high density grazing? You can't crowd them quite as much. I think it's really interesting. Definitely something to listen to on the next few episodes. And also I'll be sharing about our journey and what we're trying to do here. As always, if you're a grass farmer and you'd like to share your story, reach out to us. And I say that, reach out to us. My email is cal@grazinggrass.com. That's CAL @grazinggrass.com. The website is in kind of some disarray. I'm doing some rebranding, grouping some things together, and redoing the website. So soon we'll have a better version out. And I know it wasn't too long ago I played with the website then too. We're glad you're here. Appreciate it and look forward to talking to you next week.